All right. I think I just started the recording.
Thank you.
For the
So,
record, Courtney and I love the Macomb Street Playground, and we think it needs some love as well.
all
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
Well, welcome. Oh, let me make Rick a co-host just in case he can see the people joining. Well, welcome to ANC3C's, what month is this? April? April Public Safety Committee meeting. I am Adam Prinzo. I am the commissioner for 3C02 and the co-chair of this committee, and I will turn it over to Rick briefly.
Well, we have a fairly discrete agenda tonight, and I think we're just going to have to be a bit flexible. We're expecting MPD, but they haven't been able to confirm yet, I guess. So hopefully they will join us. But in the hope that they do, I think we should just go through the agenda. I will note just, while we're waiting, hopefully for them to join us, that on the subject of public safety and crime in the neighborhood, I got a note from a constituent and actually down the street neighbor who noted just recently in the last 2 weeks at the CVS next to the Giant on Wisconsin Avenue, that on the 25th it was attacked and vandalized. At least 3 individuals went in and literally upset shelves, knocked things off shelves, smashed some glass, took things and so forth. And that the place was a total mess. And the constituent's husband said he had talked to, one or more CVS employees, and they said that MPD response was slow. Now, again, I don't know that that was accurate, and we do know that MPD had stepped up focus on that area some months ago. And it may be that the people who did this had fled, and so when MPD did show it, it made it seem like the delay had been greater than it was. But anyway,
Do you know the date? Sorry, Rick.
March the 25th.
So, may I say, Rick, that this sounds like an action that was done very similarly to the one off Connecticut Avenue
I heard there was one on Connecticut Avenue as well, and
with the turning
at
over of the
first
shell.
I wondered if they were being conflated, but in fact, this constituent, this neighbor was in the one in Wisconsin on the 20th.
Which Connecticut Avenue one though? On
Cleveland Park.
In Cleveland
3300?
Park. And yeah,
Cleveland Park. Okay.
right. They knocked over shelves, stole
Yeah.
things, and the employee there, who's a Wilson High School graduate, was moving to Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
But in saying, he filled us in with the procedures, like for the employees, you're told not to intervene for safety
Yeah.
reasons,
Yeah.
but then they get written up for not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it puts them in a
Well, and do you know, Courtney, whether the sort of sounds very similar incident at the Connecticut Avenue CVS was on the 25th, or was it around then?
It was in February because part
Okay.
of the things that they were stealing were Valentine's Day plush toys and chocolates.
So it was both theft and vandalism.
Yeah, both theft and vandalism.
Yeah.
And my son was on his way in when he noticed people walking out with like handfuls of things. And so he thought, oh, and then he walked in and he took photos of the overturned shelves.
Wow.
Do you have
That's
them?
what I do on my phone. Hold on.
I'm just curious, Courtney, because I think
Yeah.
that I mean a little bit back to CAC, but Commander Savoy's on every CAC meeting. And it would be nice to talk directly to her about it.
Yeah. I would be happy to. I mean, our timing's a little off. I think we
Yeah.
were just having a meeting when it just happened last.
Right.
Right? Is that
Still
right?
ask, what happened and what's the plan for the future?
Yeah. Well, even if these occurred several weeks apart, it could well be the same individuals, which would be concerning. But again, even even the largest retailers are really hurting from these things, and I can only imagine what the impact is on smaller businesses when it happens. And
Well, the CVS in Columbia Heights is gone.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was audacious. They were actually stealing and then going across the street and selling the stuff. Like they have a whole shelf of lotions and
Wow.
yeah, it was
No, it would be good to hear, a more complete response from the police on this because again, we've had stepped up patrols on Connecticut Avenue, and one would hope that even if the police couldn't be there in time to catch the thieves and vandals in the act, that if they were trying to unload merchandise across the street, they would have been able to address that.
Surely
but
some
I
of
don't
the facial recognition.
That's the one in Columbia Heights, though,
yeah,
right?
that's the one in
Yeah.
Columbia Heights, not the one in
And they,
Cleveland.
when I saw the news, I think it was on NBC4, they hit the CVS and then they like dissipate. And then they come back maybe like 6 hours later or a day later or 2 days later.
Yep.
And when they start selling the stuff, it's not like right away.
The same minute, yeah. Oh, okay, here. I'm gonna put this up to the see if you can
Wow.
yeah, sorry.
If I don't think I'm allowed, maybe I can chat everybody. I'm not so sure. I think maybe only
Yeah, you can.
No.
okay. If I send you either my phone number, will
Yeah,
you just text them to me?
I'll text it right to you. Also, oh, I had a thought about the
I can only text Adam and Rick.
you
Oh,
don't have my number? Let me put it in chat.
You can't either. I
Oh,
don't
I
think.
can't. I
here,
think
if
No,
I
you send
can.
it to
only the
me,
host can.
I'll give it to Courtney. I don't know why this setting
Uh,
is the way it is.
oh, that's true. I'm looking. Anyway, the this the police station from the Cathedral Commons CVS is
Well,
in walking distance.
yes, it
A-
is. And
And
there'd been, I mean, with Captain Haskins, there'd been, more focus on that area. I mean, not
I just sent it
what
to you.
patrols I'd like to see, but certainly it seemed like there was more focus, and then there was at least one attempted, theft of several $100s from Giant a few months ago, and the police response was nearly immediate, and they made an arrest. Um, so again, I don't know. I can't verify that the police response at CVS took over 2 hours, as the employee had told a constituent. It may well have been shorter than that, but the mere fact
It's
that this is
2 hours.
occurring in the shadow of the second district is
Right.
disturbing, to say the least.
I'm sorry, Rick. They said the response time was 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
Oh.
It's what the employee told customers in the store. So, the that wasn't independently verified.
I do want to say before we move on to the next agenda item, before MPD joins, if they can, I do want to reach out to, and maybe we can talk about that for this meeting or next meeting. I do want to possibly, I've been mulling this over in my head because I'm not really been impressed with the way Matt Fruman has been handling himself when it came to the DC budget issue and the $1.3 billion that we have to seemingly evaporate into thin air. I want to gauge interest on possibly sending a letter to either him or council or the chief of police or whoever, and just ask the question of what the impact because they say it's going to impact public safety, and I have no doubt that it will, but they don't say how, and they don't say how they anticipate it, and they don't say like, oh, we're going to have to lay off X amount of officers, we're going to have to reduce this service or whatnot. So I would like to get a better understanding. Robert White had an all ANC meeting on it when it was back when it was before the Senate,
Uh-huh.
and he was saying that MPD was gonna, if I'm looking quickly, I think he was said what, $187.9 million out of MPD budget. Um, I haven't gotten any guidance from Matt Freeman's office. I haven't heard anything other from Pinto's office either. So I would
Well, it
be
looks like Lieutenant Johnson is waiting to join.
to see
Okay.
what they're saying, but here I will add him.
Should we listen to him and then come back to this?
Yeah.
Lieutenant Johnson, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hey, this is Lieutenant Johnson from
Yeah,
PSX.
thanks for joining, and thanks for responding to the reminder. I don't know whether maybe the original message didn't get to the top of your inbox or not, but
Oh, it definitely got to me. I emailed my coworkers. I had another ANC at the same time. I was hoping somebody
I see.
caught on, but I
Okay.
guess no one could do it. So I'm sorry for being late, but I had another.
No, don't apologize at all. We're really, again, pleased you can join us.
I was hoping the captain could do it, but I guess he got busy.
Yeah. No, thanks. We so as usual, we wanted to just get an update on recent criminal activity, as well as any arrests, closures in the area since we last met. And it's now been, we skipped last month. But before you joined, we were just talking about an incident that some constituents had reported, now going back a couple of weeks ago, a theft and vandalism of the CVS right by the second district, I guess following a similar incident that occurred in the Cleveland Park, Connecticut Avenue CVS in February. So if you have any detail on that, that would be useful. And then if there are questions, we can get into other issues. But again, conscious of your time and appreciate your joining.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, first of all, the CVSs all over the city are all experiencing a high number of thefts, and every day.
Yeah.
But our CST team, our crime suppression team, has been doing operations at the CVSs, and we have made numerous arrests for theft at CVS. They have a couple of officers who are just focused on CVS theft and making sure that the folks are charged correctly when they get caught. So suppose someone comes to CVS and we don't catch them, but they're caught on video, stealing 4 or 5 times. We'll charge them with all those 4 or 5 thefts when we do catch them. We made an arrest last week and we charged a guy with like 9 thefts after we finally caught him. That these guys usually come back and harass these CVSs because they have success and then they keep coming back. But eventually we catch them and we try to charge them with every theft that they committed.
Well, that's good. With I recognize that probably these tend to vary, but with the those charged who have stolen repeatedly from one or more CVS stores, do they all fit the pattern of just theft, or what I understand, for example, with the CVS at by the Giant at Cathedral Commons on March 25th, is it wasn't just theft. I mean, there was vandalism, there was a bit of destruction, shelves cleared, knocked over, some glass smashed up and things like that. Are you seeing that across CVS stores, or is that something that was more confined to there?
No, that's consistent with the CVS stores. But CVS, they lock their more house theft items up, like the soaps and deodorants, and they have to smash those windows and destroy those lock boxes to get in. So that's the vandalism part, destruction of property part.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they do that. But CVS's policy is not to engage these people, just to call the police. And they have security sometimes, but they don't try to stop the theft from occurring. So these people are empowered to, just to steal as much as they can before the police comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but eventually they get caught and we charge them. With cameras and the good photos we get, we try to charge them with every theft that they committed.
I mean, it may be too soon after the one at Cathedral Commons, but do you know if there's?
Yeah, I believe that one's still open.
Still open, okay.
Yeah. But let's go into the crimes we had in ANC3C. We had 17 reportable incidents this past month. We had one robbery in Woodley Park. I believe I emailed you on that one. Did you get the email from me about the Woodley Park robbery involving the cell phones?
Oh, I saw one about women being targeted for their cell phones. Is that the one?
Yes, I believe I emailed them. It happened
Yeah.
on March 30th.
Yes, I did. I got that email. I saw that.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't see that.
If you didn't get it, I'll add you to the email. Just put your information in the group chat, and I'll add you to my. Whenever we have like a part one offense, like a serious assault, a homicide, a robbery, we
Right.
try to email our stakeholders as soon as possible.
Thank
And,
you.
and I believe I emailed everyone. If I missed you, please just put your information in the group chat, and I'll write it down and add you to my group chat.
So, Lieutenant, would you
But
just
I'm sorry, that was the only part one offense that we had in the last 30
But
days.
I'm sorry. So, Court or who said they were targeting women with cell
that's
phones?
what I heard. I mean, if I recall, tell me if I'm wrong, please. But I recalled that women were on their cell phones and they were being targeted for their cell phones.
Well, they were being robbed for the cell phones. I don't know if they targeted women, but they robbed the women for their cell phones. Like 2 women got robbed on the same day by
Yeah.
by the metro station.
Yeah.
But those guys, I believe, they were caught in PG County and identified, and warrants pending for them. So that should be closed soon
Good.
by arrest.
Were they juveniles?
Of course, yes, ma'am. Juveniles. Yeah. And that was the only part one offense that we had. When I say part one, I mean, robbery, homicide, serious assault to report in ANC3C. We only had 2 theft from autos, so we're doing good with that. And the rest were, of course, thefts from the CVSs and markets in the area. Also, we'll be having a community walk in PSA 204. I know some of it's 203 on this chat, but 204 is Glover Park, Woodley Park, Cathedral Heights, and we're going to be meeting at the Guy Mason Rec on May 1st. I'll put this in group chat. On May 1st at 2:30 p.m., we'll start from the parking lot and we'll do a community walk. It usually lasts about an hour and a half. And some of our partners show up, like people from DDOT, DPW, the mayor's office might show up and talk to people, residents in the community about what's going on and what's happening in the future.
And that's at 2:30 p.m. that day.
6:30 p.m.
Oh,
I'll put it in the group chat so we don't
Okay.
forget.
Right.
Any other questions, Mr. Nash? Anyone might have?
Well,
For me,
I'll just ask one question. I mean, first of all, thank you for this. And it's obviously reassuring that in general, crime is down. As you point out, theft from auto, serious assault down. I mean, we still are seeing retail theft and vandalism, which is concerning. Not for tonight, but just kind of wondering in the future, as with the great focus on crime, we're wondering if MPD has the time to focus on other public safety aspects. And here I'm thinking of some of the aggressive, and I would even say pretty outrageous vehicle conduct and incidents that we've seen in the neighborhood is our constituents focus rightly on pedestrian and vehicle safety. And just this thinking in recent days, we've had much concern in the neighborhood on the 34th Street corridor. And there are a variety of safety issues, but in recent weeks, I've seen things that I've never seen before, namely cars traveling at high speed in the center turn lane, sometimes going for several blocks. In one case, through red lights to bypass traffic that was lawfully stopped at the lights. This morning, often southbound, but today I saw a car going at pretty high speed northbound, again using the center turn lane just a block north of John Eaton School. And no signal will compensate for that with a bad aggressive driver. So just as crime comes down, it would be good to know if MPD is taking action, on aggressive driving or, DUI, and if there are stats in the future that could be shared.
Oh yes, sir. But traffic is always a concern for the police department, and we do make traffic arrests almost daily for not for aggressive driving, but like no permits, DUIs. Aggressive driving is kind of hard to. It happens mainly when the police aren't around. We have to get, we usually get calls for that, and we respond to those incidents, of course, but we usually don't do it in our presence.
Yeah.
Yep. But traffic, we'll definitely try to increase traffic in Woodley Park and Cleveland Park along Connecticut. We have, as you see with the foot beats, they have cars. And they're right there on Connecticut Avenue almost 24 hours a day.
Right.
We're definitely have them at night for the burglaries. We have them in Cleveland Park and in Woodley Park. You'll see them with lights on, flashing red and blue all night long in those areas. And we do make traffic arrests. I can share those stats next month. I'll bring them, or I have the captain share them with you.
Yeah, that would be useful. Going forward. Don't expect them tonight, obviously.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Thanks. Do others have questions?
I have a quick question about the relative importance of filming when you see like a moving traffic violation. Would you want because I can pretty much tell when I'm crossing Connecticut at the Kennedy Warren, which is a Connecticut and Devonshire. I can tell when somebody's gunning it that they're going to run the red light. And I could probably catch it on film, but only if it's something that you thought it was useful to do. And secondly, how important is littering relative to the image of public safety, or the feeling that if there's not a lot of litter, it feels like it's perhaps being monitored, and that would be an added feeling of safety. I think when there's a lot of trash, food trash and things like that in the street, on the sidewalks, and on private property, it just feels like nobody's monitoring it. And that's a deep concern for me. I've gone out 3 times in this month alone in April, and picked up a full garbage bag of trash just on my street.
Well, your first question with the videoing of the traffic violations.
Yes, sir.
That's good to send to DDOT. DDOT has a website, and they can install red light cameras at different locations or stop sign cameras, and they take requests from citizens.
Okay.
Yeah, they won't take it from the police, but from citizens they will. And you can click on a link and request a red light camera or stop sign camera. They'll do a survey based on your request and try in your videos and try to get those and address your issues.
Thank you.
Yeah, but with the trash, of course, we all want to live in a clean area, and the cleaner the better. I think that the trash, I don't think it has an effect on crime, but it has an appearance where, like you said, if they think no one's watching it, they see a lot of trash around. But DPW has a website also. DPW should come out and pick up any trash. If you see it, you can contact them on public space. I don't know about private property, it's something different. But public space, DPW has a.
You can always use 311 too.
Yep, 311, and they'll contact DPW directly. Where you can
just so you know, I pulled out purses that had clearly been stolen, and just had like bank cards and things in it. I tried to return it to lost and found. Then I tried contacting the individuals, but you find stolen items in the woods right across the street from between the playground and the road, which is across the street from my apartment, on more than one occasion, amongst other unnecessary to name things. But that was a concern, that somebody felt comfortable enough to dispose of stolen goods in the woods.
If you find something like that, call 911.
I did.
An officer come out and retrieve that from you.
Yeah, I did.
Some of our cases.
Yeah, I had a purse and a backpack that I pulled out of the woods.
We definitely want to know about those things. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Lieutenant Johnson? Well, thanks. Lieutenant, is there anything that you need from us that, issues that you want us to amplify with the council member or in our ANC meetings, any way that we can be helpful to you in your work?
I think we all do a good job communicating with these meetings, and sometimes the mokers on the meetings with us. They hear what our concerns. They know our concerns. We contact them separately on things. So just like you say, just call the police whenever you see something. We need information. If you find some property, please call us if it has ID attached to it, like the purses or backpacks.
Yeah.
It helps us with our recovering evidence. It's very important. And video is very important. Just be vigilant, and please, if you have any information, dial 911. If you have any questions about a crime, you think a crime is occurring, dial 911 right away.
I do
Okay.
want to say one thing off topic. Or Courtney, do you have something to add?
Oh no, not at all.
A couple weeks ago, we did a rat walk, which was really fun, with the Main Streets director, MPD, DOB, DC Health, and the mayor's office. The council member's office was invited, but chose not to attend. And I will say, I met two things about that. I can get you the date. I met a individual who was in the MPD cadet program.
Okay.
Who lives in Ward 8, and he was an absolute pleasure to talk to, and I think he will do the city proud serving as an MPD officer. I think he was an absolute just picture of what a great MPD officer will be. And I will stipulate that the second MPD officer that I spoke to that evening had the thickest Russian accent, and he told me that Alex Ovechkin will not break the record this season. And I would just like to get back to him that Alex Ovechkin did indeed break the record this season.
That sounds like a Gabi.
I think so. I think you might be right.
He's from Ukraine, I believe.
Ukraine? Okay.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yes. Great man.
He was fabulous.
Yeah, he's awesome. Awesome. We only have one Russian. Ukrainian. I'm sorry, Ukrainian.
Oh, that's a landmine right there right now.
Yeah, he's a great person though. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if there are no more questions, Lieutenant, we'll let you get on with your other work. But thank you again for joining. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you or your colleagues on the walk on May 1st.
Okay, I'll put information in the chat right now. I'll type it right in, so we'll have it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Was he able to put it in the
chat?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I have to share it just because
Oh,
the
okay.
settings are a little annoying.
I'm typing it in right now, so give me a few minutes.
It's just for some reason they changed the settings on us, so when you chat, it chats to me, and then I have to send it to everybody. So
awesome.
There's no group chats on these meetings, for what that's worth.
I will say that this is DC Council paid for, and DC Council set up these settings, and
Autocracy in action.
Well, there's pluses and minuses to the group chats and meetings, so but we'll get the word out. So thank you. Adam, do you want to take the next agenda item?
yes, and then we can loop back after. Next, it's the first thing that I put in the chat. So Councilmember Pinto unveiled her follow-up to Secure DC, which she is calling I believe it's called Peace DC. Yes, Peace DC. So I sent out just now earlier and then in the chat her tweet about it as well as her press release. And I want to see if anybody has any strong feelings on it. If happy to draft a letter like we did with Secure DC and kind of try to get our points across the council again. My from my understanding and just brief reading of it, the 2 or 3 bigger things that she's focused on in this bill is merging the mayor's office on neighborhood safety and engagement, who actually came to an ANC meeting a couple months ago, I guess, to talk about their programs, merging them with OAG's Clear the Streets office. This would expand safe commercial corridors. It would open up MPD's training academy for opportunity to get college credits for it. It would introduce a pretrial detention amendment. So it would either expand the use of pretrial detention or not expand, yeah, expand it to different to newer crimes as well as continue on, because I think the provision in Secure DC had a sunset date. And I think this just extends that. And then its second biggest thing is empowerment of youth. And also, here, let me just put this in the chat quickly. Empowerment of youth and residential tranquility. So I think it's supposed to play on both OAG Secure Act as well as the Mayor's Rental Act that she just introduced. So I put that in the chat. And I do want to get some of your feedback if anybody had a chance to read it, or we can, also talk about it over email. I will say that it looks like they're pushing for expanded kidnapping statutes, which I just saw. We did a provision to ask for them to revisit pet napping in our last letter to Secure DC, which actually got a lot of attention, both like publicly and then we did some interviews on it as well. Matt Freeman seemed unwilling to push for it because the monetary value of a animal was less than a car, is what I was told. But I would like to get anybody else's input.
Okay, so the pet kidnapping conjures the scene that we've seen on a few home cameras of people just walking their dogs and being confronted at gunpoint. And then the local news stations will run a story, and at least twice, I think the animal was returned to the individual. But
Yeah.
am I to believe that there might be a lot more that they never see them again? Is that,
Yes.
are there
So
clear
pet
stats?
napping, when we were doing Secure DC, first of all, when we were doing Secure DC, if anybody ever looked at my computer history, they would have thought I definitely was trying to commit a crime, because I was like, what is the penalty for?
Right.
The penalty for stealing, so a dog is classified as property. And there's different varying levels of property, and oddly enough, a pet is not at the highest level of property. It falls within the middle range. Pet napping was a very serious crime last summer and the summer before that, where there was a number of incidences. I think in our letter, I think we said there was something like 42 incidents. And only 25% of the time was the dog returned.
Oh,
My sense, I mean, so when you talk about pet napping and essentially you correlate it with kidnapping, my sense is ransom as opposed to theft. And those are different activities? Like, are people, in your opinion, are people stealing these dogs to resell them because they want pets, or because they're going to get you and say like $200 for your dog back?
So there was incidences of both. There was incidences of they were trying to rob the person and the dog got in the way, so they took the dog. There
Okay.
was incidents of we are going to steal this French bulldog because they're $5,000 and we can resell them easily. There was one instance where the dog was found in what was described as like a dog fighting ring. And then there was only two, I think, of the 42, or maybe there was only one of the people asking for like, give me $300 and I'll give you your dog back.
Okay.
We talked about it because they increased the penalties for kidnapping last in Secure DC. I'm not saying that it's the same by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
I do think that when we changed the penalties for carjacking, so stealing someone's car in DC could get you between 10 to 15 years in prison. And if you steal someone's pet, the maximum you will get is 2.
Okay, so who assigns the monetary value to pets? Because it's all over the universe. First of all, if you buy a
So
pedigree, yeah.
when I had a conversation with Councilmember Fruman at Flavature for WPCA, he seemed unwilling to push for it because he felt that the his words were that the monetary value of a car is usually exceeds the monetary value of a pet.
So
So
that's
that's why it's
indeterminate.
classified as it is when it comes to property.
That's just not, it's not in
Now, I
keeping
will
with,
say that Virginia and Maryland raised penalties for pet napping. So I think that they raised it to like a class B felony or something like that, which is the highest that they allowed for robbery and theft. Now, I will also state that if you get robbed of your pet in your home, that turned out to be that turned out to be burglary as opposed to theft.
oh, I see.
So when it was the people that were walking on the street that had their dogs taken, that's theft or one of the two.
That's splitting hairs because you have to walk your dog. I mean, most people
You
have
know,
to,
I would
So,
hope or think
um,
they could charge assault too in those cases.
yeah.
You know,
And there are service dogs as well.
right.
And they're, I mean, it, God, I just adopted 2 feral cats. I am like throwing up money and not saying that I'd be out walking my cat and I fear that
There
somebody
is a
would take.
person in my apartment building that does walk their cat on a leash.
Yeah, I
Very impressed.
we used to have the incredible journey, 2 dogs and a cat, and none of them were on the leash and they would just walk together. It was crazy. It was interesting. But uh, the cost associated with the investment that you make with a pet is not reflective of the pet's monetary value per se, but all of the associated expenses and investment that you've done. I mean, just taking them to the vet, just getting regular shots, just, routine maintenance on your cat that or dog that's 9 years or older. It's a lot more money than some cars eventually. I believe me, I've seen pets with wheelchairs and cancer treatment and all sorts. I mean, these are the tens of thousands of dollars in expenses. So it's hard, I think, to fix the same sort of monetary value that you would have for something that you buy and use as opposed to something that you care for. Care cost is a lot more than a ride to the gas station or something like that.
So my argument to him at the time is that I'm not going to discredit people that get carjacked. I think that's a very emotionally traumatic experience. I also think getting your pet stolen is emotionally traumatic. As long as you're properly insured, which was my argument to him, your car is somewhat replaceable.
Right,
Your pet is not really replaceable.
right.
I mean, sure, you can go and buy a new dog, but like it's not going to be the same dog.
No, there's an intangible value that is non-monetary which would be emotional and relationship oriented as opposed to functional, which is like, oh, my car is gone. I need to replace it. You could get a new dog, but it's not going to be your new dog.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, one question I would have is, I would think probably DC, like a lot of jurisdictions, has historically, looked at theft of a pet, purely as an economic issue and, particularly focused on kind of productive economic values. So probably, some kind of theft of some kinds of animals, if you go back to horses, would be valued higher. But clearly relationships with pets has changed a lot in the last 100 years. Do you know, Adam, how other, localities in different parts of the country are dealing with it?
So when we did secure DC, I think at the time there was 15 other states that had a special classification for theft of a pet. The most recent one was Maryland. Virginia did it
mhm.
about 5 years ago. And it was not that they classified it as kidnapping, but they classified it as like theft of a living object or something like that. So like it carried a higher penalty than just theft of property. Um, I can go back and look, but I do think if it's something that everybody can agree with, I think it is something that we should continue to push for. I mean, it
May I
is
just
the
ask what you would like to see? I mean, what I hear is that people go to jail for 10 to 15 years for carjacking and no more than 2 for pet napping. What
Yeah.
what do you think is, I mean, just so I understand what you would like consensus on, what do you think it should be like?
either raising the penalty or making it a more serious crime. So instead of theft of property, make it like theft of a living person, a living item, or a living object, or a living animal. In Virginia and Maryland, it's classified as like a class B as opposed to a class C. And in DC, I think it's a like the classes is based on what is this what monetary value the property is assessed. And I think they were assessing dogs at like $5,000 or something like that. Um, I think, or like even just an enhancement on it. So like say like, oh, theft of property, but then also like with an enhancement that it was a living item. I think we do have to draw a line because obviously somebody could use that to make an argument on a plant or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
though if you steal my avocado plant, I would be very annoyed. But I do think there is room to push for that just because it was obviously we haven't hit the summer months here yet, but
Yeah.
it was a big issue the past 2 summers.
I'm really just talking about dogs here, yes?
I would say it's
I
I
think
guess
it's,
maybe an
yeah.
animal that you walk. I mean, because I don't think you're gonna really walk your cat. I mean, it's not like you're walking your fish.
Yeah.
That's what I just, I'm only asking because like Kelly's Blue Book will tell you what that car was worth or whatever, but like
Right.
how do you, a 10-year-old dog versus a 2-year-old dog, a purebred, I mean, it starts to be, I think the monetary value of the animal is not relevant here because you
Yeah,
can't,
no, I agree.
I
I
think
mean,
it's emotional.
yeah.
ideally, I would like to see DC get onto like the more of Virginia and Maryland side of theft of a living item,
Yeah.
or like theft of, I think in Virginia it's called like theft of an emotional companion or something like that.
Okay.
But I think like that might be better than keeping it as just theft of an item worth like less than $5,000.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like what you suggested about, not so much extending the punishment with the same verbiage, but to change the verbiage to reflect the importance of the relationship with that person to that animal, said pet. And, that being said, not a lot of cats are walking around, but I do know people that take their birds out, some of their exotic birds out for
That
air
would
and
scare me.
and
What
the
if it flew away?
well, I mean, they don't have them just loose on their shoulder usually. or they have the kind that have their wings clipped so that they're still on them, but they don't fly. But I've seen cockatoos and parrots out on a walk. And if somebody decided they wanted to take that, it should be a pretty serious, you know, crime. Yeah, but not to plants. We have to draw the line at plants.
No, I agree. So I can like work up some language on that. I do want to highlight some other things though. I think it would be good for us to also continue our support for making sure that MPD is fully staffed, which is a provision in here, as well as retention and incentives for hiring OUC call takers as well as firefighters.
Yeah.
Um,
So have we lost our budget or not?
we're not sure.
I know they
And
postponed
well,
it.
you're asking budget questions. Weren't we told repeatedly that the extra security we're seeing at the CVS's was all overtime, 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 and that they weren't going to budget for that indefinitely?
Yes.
So,
Mm,
I mean, I would think that would be one of the very first things to go if they're.
I would agree.
mm.
So that goes back to what I was saying before, and I was kind of waiting for the lieutenant to drop off because I know he can't really speak to it without approval. But do we think it's worth it to send a letter to either the mayor or to Councilmember Pinto and just say like, what are your envisions on police cuts? Or I wouldn't even just say police cuts, I would say public safety cuts, because I mean, like they were talking
Yeah.
about some serious cuts to DCPS as well,
Yeah.
and some serious cuts to the charter schools.
And this was all DC money. It wasn't federal money,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, or, you know, at a minimum, ask for revised estimates of what the, you know, resulting impact's gonna be. Because, you know, well, until this House bill gets passed and signed. But, you know, my understanding is the initial estimates have been scrubbed a little bit since then. I mean, some were probably too high, you know, others with the passage of time are too low. So it would be good to get revised, you know, numbers from DC. It's yet another argument that they can use to, you know, to further House passage of the bill. I'd hoped it would be farther along. I mean, even President Trump, you know,
Yeah.
put out a statement on X or something, you know,
Yep.
forcing action on this. So
Yep. Oof, I'm cold. Sorry.
I mean, I'm not opposed to drafting that letter. I just think, you know, I think we focus on both MPD and DCPS and maybe like OUC staffing, because a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of, if they're doing first in, first out, they obviously hired a lot of OUC call takers very recently.
Yeah.
Or last in, first out, not first in, first out.
Well, maybe is there any kind of contingency plan in case we don't get this part of our self-earned budget?
So there's a couple of things that they could do. They could sue the federal government, and basically say you approved our budget. You need to let us use it. Now, there's a couple of things with that. Obviously, with the state of home rule, I don't know if we want to sue the federal government. I also
get
don't
in
know if
line,
the federal
right?
government would listen because we're not in normal times.
Yeah.
Um, Council can also pass an emergency bill that would restore funding. And as long as the mayor signs it and it goes through its congressional review period, then it could take effect. Now,
Okay.
the council, from what Robert White had said to us in the ANC, on the all ANC meeting, seemed a little hesitant with that approach, because while everybody was branding this as a mistake that this language was included in the bill, he was like, obviously, if they move to disapprove this, then we know it wasn't a mistake.
Yeah.
Um, so I think they're still trying to work that out. I think they were hoping that the House
We
would
take it up. Yeah.
would take it up
Yeah.
more rapidly.
Yeah. All right. It's a source of vaguely indescriptive anxiety for me. I just don't want to face hearing that news that we don't get our budget passed. That could mean so many different changes so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, we could go like vague and just say, do you have any estimates? Or we could target it to MPD. I would say MPD, DC public schools, and
Yeah.
I'm
maybe
fine with
even
that
like
targeted approach.
DPR. What happened?
I said I'm fine with that targeted approach, yeah.
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 Okay. I can draft that and circulate that and see
Thank you, Adam.
what the other commissioners think. The only other things that I wanted to highlight in this bill is that it does a lot of re-entry stuff.
Hmm.
In addition to what we were talking about. So it would increase reentry pathways by promoting a 6-month reentry pilot program for people incarcerated by the FBI to finish their sentences locally at the DC jail, and to help facilitate successful reentry into the district by being surrounded by family and other DC government issued services. It would provide housing support for returning citizens by investing in some support for housing for formerly incarcerated people. It would provide financial assistance for returning citizens. It would increase government employment opportunities for returning citizens and increase private sector employment opportunities as well. And then lastly, I would say that it also is looking to increase, where was it? I just saw it. Safe passage and trainings to school and other engagement areas, so people can get to and from school safely, or other engagement areas.
Isn't the DC jail wildly overcrowded as it is?
Yes,
And
Mm.
isn't it a well-known fact that it actually needs to be rebuilt, replaced,
I think it's in process of being rebuilt.
Yeah.
or to be both more humane and accommodate more people? Yes.
I think so.
I mean,
Humane, yes. I don't know if it's going to.
I mean,
Sometimes it takes so long to build them that by the time they do, it's short of what
but I
is necessary.
thought, essentially what we have right now is condemned actually years
Yeah.
ago, and there's just
Yeah.
somehow it seems to have $1 billion price tag on a new one. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I mean, I think parts of the DC jail have been condemned. I think there have been numerous um people that have left the DC jail that have said that it is a place that no one should ever experience in their life. I think it was overcrowded. Obviously, I think some of the people that were in the DC jail were recently allowed to leave the DC jail. So I don't know what its population is right now. But yes, both of your points are correct.
I was just curious because I thought that many people weren't held because there just wasn't space, and there were possibly more arrests a couple of years ago, and people were getting upset about what they called catch and release, but the explanation was that there was just nowhere to
Yeah,
put.
no space. Which I also find interesting because they are pushing to expand and extend pretrial detention.
Right. And they were
I
also
just
having trouble finding just, safe places to house juveniles where
Yeah.
they would be putting them in with adult criminals.
Yes. So I think the DC DYRS, Department of Youth Rehabilitative Services, has 2 facilities as opposed to 1. They're not exactly around the corner.
Right. I think one's in Maryland, I think.
Yeah, I think they're both in Maryland. I think one's closer to BWI, and then I think the other one is like halfway in between BWI and the city. Um, but from my understanding of the DYRS program is that that actually functions relatively, and I use the term relative, well, in comparison to DOC. Obviously it has its issues, but it's not as poorly mismanaged as the Department of Corrections runs the DC jail.
I always hear that they're understaffed and underfunded. That's all I ever hear. The Department of Correction.
Yes, I mean so part of this bill too is to recruit retired, I think, MPD officers to serve as corrections officers.
Oh, wow.
And also expand retention of our most experienced corrections officers. MPD, yeah, recruit retired MPD officers to serve. So I mean, I think just, we can, if we all want to take a look at this and just give me your thoughts or whatever, like I'm happy to draft a letter. This was just introduced and I don't see this being taken up before the mayor presents her FY 2026 budget, which obviously has been delayed. So I would say that we have some runway on this, so I think that's works in our favor. The only thing I do want to mention is I think that the merger of the ONSE and OAG Secure the Streets program is probably for the better, just given what happened with the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. But Cure the Streets has been very successful from my understanding. ONSE has been a little less successful, so I think having the resources in one location might be better.
Okay.
Does that work?
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I would love to see it. See what you come up with.
And then I think, Elizabeth, the next thing was yours was the 34th Street.
So I sent Rick the letter that I think that the Eaton parents have just been, agitating and agitating. And there has
Yeah.
been a lot of construction on 34th Street and people are driving like maniacs up there. And I think, to the point before that, lights and things are not going to stop people, but, there just has been a lot of interest from all of the stakeholders at John Eaton, the parents, the teachers, that it feels unsafe to walk to school under the current, um, the way things currently are. And to Courtney's point, that children used to be allowed to walk to the Macomb Street playground by themselves. I think that parents today would be a little concerned. And so, the letter that came back from, DDOT essentially said that there's planning a 2026 study with perhaps 2027 interventions. And I just wondered, might there be shorter term things that they could do while they were doing that? Just, in the spirit of reaching out to the community and hearing it and not letting the conditions that prevail continue for several more years.
No. Well, I mean, one thought I had, and thank you for sending the letter, Elizabeth, is, they did refer to a study of, broader issues, although obviously including some intersections close to the school. When the ANC had written the letter to DDOT now, a year and a half ago, again, asking for a study and not being too prescriptive, but still had offered some suggestions on, fairly immediate,
Right.
modest cost things to do. I'd be happy to, draft an updated letter citing to this and saying, of course, we appreciate the response, welcome the study. But there are these things that probably don't need a study that could be done or could be attempted. And, you know, some of them are just clearly overdue, like the poles that block either pedestrians at
Right.
intersections or
Exactly.
city lines, but others are, you know, just more in the toolkit, but are low cost and, you know, to be tried to increase pedestrian visibility, to reduce speed, things like that. And, you know, they could do that without, you
Right.
know,
Could be some short-term things
yeah,
that are
exactly.
inexpensive, implemented
Right.
now, and then they can do their, longer term study with a plan for the whole
Right, right. And, you know,
part or later on.
considering whether the short-term measures have, you know, led to any safety impact among
I
others.
actually think that the least they can do is hold a meeting that allows these Eaton parents to come and share or have a walk, send an engineer and have a walk. Come at,
Well,
I
you
don't
need
care,
more than
8
an
in the morning
engineer.
when
You need
people are walking to school and come at
someone like a
3.
director or the
Yeah.
ward planner to be there. I mean, we've had several walks, including with Matt Furman.
Right.
But you know, getting DDOT's attention has been difficult. I'm pleased that director responded on this, but you know, quite frankly, even before the ANC letter, which you have, um, the ANC had, you know, including Swale, who spent some considerable time on this, working with Eaton parents, had come up with a list of some measures right in the immediate vicinity of the school.
Right.
You know, most of which were not on 34th Street. They still haven't addressed those. I mean, that's
There's
been
that very
back more than
spiffy
2 years.
new crossing sign that's further north.
Oh, the sort of like a hawk light. Yeah,
You push it and like it tells the cars
yeah,
like somebody
yeah.
would like
Slow
to cross
down,
the
yeah.
street here, and I don't think anybody understands how hawk lights work.
I don't know. I mean, I did hear from a constituent. Well, it's not technically a constituent. Someone in the neighborhood has been focused on this issue. That he feels that the hawk light is working pretty well. You know, and he lives up there, so
The hawk light on 34th Street.
correct. Yeah.
That's fantastic. But I'm saying that there's the other hawk light on Connecticut Avenue in front of CVS. People don't understand they're supposed to stop. They just go through it when
Yeah,
it's
that's
flashing.
Well,
correct. That's correct.
I think there they need a little enforcement. I mean, I'm well familiar with a hawk
I just
light.
don't think that, right. I don't
Coastal
think
City, a very wide street, and people.
Well, there's a difference between a hawk light and a crossing light.
Right. I think the crossing light is a very effective thing, and maybe they could put a couple around the school so that traffic's not impeded when there aren't children around, but when children are around, pedestrians get to cross the street safely.
Yeah.
Well, the worst of the intersections is, right at the top of the hill. So like,
Yes.
yeah, that's the worst. And then always
Terrible.
gives me a heart attack every time I see somebody attempting to cross, because invariably somebody will be flying up the hill
Yep.
and sometimes they're following closely. And over the years, I haven't seen that many, but I have seen people rear-ended that came to a quick stop at that intersection and were hit behind. I remember that picking up my kids one day. Um, so that's the most harrowing of all the segments in the area for walking to the school. That was the worst one, and there's nothing there still. I remember for a little while they had the little plastic guy in the middle that got run over all over the place.
Repeatedly, but you
Yeah.
know, when you hear just what I've observed, and that's obviously a small fraction of the issues that exist. I mean, drivers pay that no heed, and in fact, they use this center turn lane, which is a bit of an anomaly among streets in the area. They just use it, some of them,
As a lane.
lane, and
Yep.
lawfully stopped traffic, which is
Yep.
again disturbing.
Do you mind writing that letter? That's an update, Rick. I'm
I'd
just
be
a question.
happy
Is
to.
there nasty lawyerly language that you have access to that might suggest that should accidents occur that where people are actually harmed, like lawsuits will follow because you've been put on notice so many times that this is dangerous?
Well, DDOT's certainly on notice.
I don't think we can write that in an ANC letter, unfortunately.
Okay. Just wondering.
I don't
Plus,
think the
I'm not
ANC
a
is allowed
nasty
to
lawyer,
sue.
so.
No, it's called nice nasty.
Nice,
It's like,
nasty. Minnesota
Helpful.
nice.
Helpful.
right.
Well, look,
You can protect yourselves.
it's obviously frustrating to Adam and me and other commissioners that DDOT has slow rolled this, and you know the fact that the Eaton community is involved, and you know they're important, you know, part of the broader community that's affected. I mean, it's not just residents in the area, students who live in the area, but you know, Eaton among Ward 3 elementary schools
Yeah.
serves percentage wise and in absolute numbers, you know, a greater number of students from around the city. And so
Right.
safety issues have an impact for families around the district. And so again, through whatever lens DDOT looks at this, they should be prioritizing this project.
So thank you very much for kind lawyerly language.
Nice language. I do think that when we send this letter, we should include Fruman. He's been very
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think he and his office are going to be key to.
And will you please loop in BAR as well, like the CPCA, because we've been working on this one like crazy as well.
Yeah, of course, you know,
It's Mike
hopefully
Reifer, who's
effective
on your transportation committee.
if it's a coordinated effort.
Yeah.
Actually, it might be good to also include oh my God, what's his name from Ward 6? Councilmember Allen, because he chairs the transportation committee.
Here, okay.
Oh, super. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Actually, the other ANC might chime on in 3A, because they also have children walking to school. Yes, that's the 34th Street's the dividing line.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll talk to Isaac, the commissioner for there.
Thank you.
He's in the district that includes the western part of Cleveland Park.
Super, thank you.
Now, I want to repeat what seems to be a rumor, but I'm just not certain of how much the federal government could do. Could they, or could it be possible to cancel an entire group of representatives from a specific neighborhood in the city?
No.
Okay. Could they dismantle the council?
Yes.
Okay.
To dismantle the council, they would need to pass a bill. You would need
Okay.
to pass the Senate, which would require 7 Democrats to vote with the Republican majority. And
Okay.
then it would need to go to the president's desk for a signature. I'm going to be completely honest with you. As much as they talk a big game about wanting to get rid of home rule, I don't think they want to be bothered with running the city day to day.
Yeah.
I also don't think you're going to get 7 Democrats to vote with the Republicans on this.
And is it okay? It's just something also to be cognizant of, but I would be pleased if, even if they can't do it directly, I feel like there may be incentive to dismantle as much as you can to cripple home rule. Similarly to what happened with USAID or other entities. And I think it's something that we need to be at least prepared for, not as in its finality, but in its attempt. And I would like us on some level to be able to have a few moves ready should it be attempted, not as if it would be a successful event, but I mean the chipping away part. That's the thing that concerns me. And this $1 billion budget that we can't get through the House at the moment, I mean, that would be one of the ways, is to not allow the city to spend the money that it had earned and had approved. So I just think these are not big concerns from people. I see every weekend everybody is coming into the to the market. They're a little shell shocked by the news items, but they feel with the Kennedy Center and the Smithsonian that home rule or some of the autonomy that we've enjoyed over, almost 50 years almost, will be whittled away, and we would be really challenged on basic things. I'm reflecting not just
Mhm.
my own thoughts, but I hear it every weekend um, from our neighbors at the market. So
I get it. I mean, I think, you know, council and the mayor have tools in their chests.
okay.
At least I'd like to hope so.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just I don't know. There's some way. I mean, you
I
can't
noticed he
address
was
it.
playing nice until recently.
Yeah, the parade has been a thorn back in her side because the estimates are in this, almost $100 million range for damage alone.
What a
Um,
protest opportunity.
I
I would
know.
just love to see the military equipment trying to go across the 14th Street Bridge and see if it can handle that.
You incinerate, what, 10 trillion in market value in the
Oh
course
yeah.
of a week. What's 100 million in damage to some streets?
Or they'll come up through Rock Creek Park and like not be able to get wedged under the bridge or something. It's
Wow.
like it's a I don't know where the bottom is sometimes with some of these administrative decisions, but it is a concern with a lot of people. A lot of people. Um, I've had 88-year-old women down on the mall on the 5th of April protesting with their little signs. It was really cute, but it's a deep concern, especially with people who have lived long enough to witness what utter chaos is like versus regular chaos. No, it's just something I think we can just try to imagine what would be something to say um, to allay feelings without directly mentioning the threat. So, um, my thoughts are just to encourage and remind people of how much community we've got going. And, some of our successful uh, collaborations with each other and anything that we've done citywide that was useful. Any little thing just to put it out there and remind people that we are stronger connected. I think that might be a backdoor way of allaying some of these anxieties that I keep hearing so much.
Very much.
Agree.
Thanks.
And then just quickly, um, well, I want to circle back to, sorry, to Elizabeth's thing. I think we could incorporate the ANC's transportation committee on this just because I feel like they've also been very active.
Yes.
So run that by them. We have a lot of people on that committee that obviously use 34th Street, walk children on 34th Street. So it would be good to get their input as well. Plus, I think it's Warren that like can write really good. Courtney's giving me a look, but
That's it.
When is the next meeting of that committee?
we haven't scheduled one. So we were supposed to meet not next, but not the Wednesday after the ANC meeting. I
Okay.
think it's the 23rd.
Okay.
But I don't think other than this, which I just realized, I don't think we have anything else for that agenda. So I can I'll email them and see if they have anything else they want to add before I notice it.
Okay.
And then just quickly, because I know we're a little bit over here, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the mayor's office reached out about possibly sending somebody to talk about the mayor's bill. What is it called? Rebalancing expectations for neighbors, tenants and landlords or rental act. This bill was a response and a continuation of the Attorney General's Secure Act. However, this one seems a little more less friendly to tenants. This one seems to, in my opinion, legalize retaliatory rental practices. But I would like to hear if anybody's interested in having somebody come and talk about rental. I certainly have my opinions on it as a former renter, so I will just throw that out there. I think I think it's intentioned, but I think it goes down a very slippery slope with being very questionable.
Can you just expand on that? Why do you think it's questionable?
I think so under secure and under the law now, um, like you were able to withhold X, I think it's up to $600 a month in rent without being penalized with an eviction if there was a legitimate concern for the condition of your apartment, the water is not working, or I'm being overcharged for water, or XYZ, and it removes that protection. So you would have to essentially file a lawsuit against your landlord and pay the $600 to the court as opposed to just withholding it. Now, obviously, that seems all well and good, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't then come back and say, and while this lawsuit is pending, like you have a protection from not being evicted. So if I sue my landlord, they can just be like, okay, I'm done, goodbye. And it doesn't protect you from that. I also,
Yeah.
there's just, I think Courtney did a little bit more reading on it than I had the opportunity to as of yet. I will say, like in my old apartment, there was one month where I got charged $989 for water, and it was the month of December when I was not even here. So I withheld that, and that was my
Yeah.
right to withhold that because I didn't use $1,000 in water. That's a little ridiculous.
Right.
And as long as I stipulated to my management company, like I am withholding this for the sole purpose that I am disputing the amount, I was not allowed to be retaliated against,
Right.
which this removes that restriction, but it does so vaguely. So instead of shall not, it changes it to may not, or maybe it's the other way. I think
It's well, stronger is shall not.
yeah, I
So
think it
I think it goes
changes shall
from
not to may
to
not.
may not, yes. And may gives them wiggle room. Um, which is unfortunate because I mean a lot of people, I think there's always room for fraud. I mean, somebody's always gonna try to do and get away, but in general, tenants are risk adverse and don't tend to confront the management company directly and don't tend to say, this is my right. Only when they feel that they have a strong position. And like I said, I'm living in a situation that I bore witness to something that was really bad, in which 5 tenants all moved out at the same time as a result of the handling of the situation. And they have options, but for other people that are living here, they might be older, retired, whatever, they just keep quiet. They don't want to lose their chance to continue living where they're living. So a lot of neglect or uh, things can happen and they are not addressed. They'll try to address it, but if they're not resolved, it just goes on. And they don't withhold rental payment and they don't stipulate this is the reason. They don't want to make waves.
So that sounds very, I mean, that all sounds very wrong, but you're talking about the mayor's office offered to send somebody to talk about it?
Yes. Well, they want to gauge interest in if people want to hear about it.
Because it's a contrast to the other
Right.
proposed.
So why wouldn't that be an opportunity to bring up concerns? I mean, if
No, I'm just making sure that I want to double check with you guys to make sure that that's something that you're interested in
Yeah,
hearing from, or
absolutely.
Is this an in-person meeting, Adam? Because I think,
it could be either or.
you know, the library is a great place and there are so many renters who are really interested in, you know, all of the changes that have happened to the rental environment. And
Yep.
I know, I agree. I will say,
you guys could have a great meeting and you'd get a lot of people.
I will say we are having our first in-person meeting in June.
Congratulations.
So this may be, and I'm looking at one of the members of the hybrid meeting task force. I don't mean to pick on you, Rick, but this may be a good opportunity if we want to like maybe set something up for May for us to
Yeah.
test
Yeah.
the hybrid meeting kit.
Yeah,
Yep.
that would be great, particularly if we had a program.
So I will
think
talk
it's
to
a good idea.
Kendall, who's our Ward 3 mayor's rep, and see if we can slate somebody for May. And we can possibly pick a,
Look at if you're going to do it at the library, look at the rooms first because they book up really fast.
Like
yeah,
Yeah.
January 1st,
No,
really.
you got to be 60 days out. So whenever we're
Yeah.
trying to do something with the CPCA, my alarm is always set for like 60 days out so
Oh,
I can
you're smart. You're
get it.
smart.
But
okay.
since
will-
you're the ANC, like if you talk to Holly, who's the manager of the library, she actually is incredibly good at like fixing things, letting you stay later than you were planning, than technically you're allowed to, and also um, piggybacking on some of the after school programs. Like we just do a quick cleanup and a quick turnaround, and
Yeah.
you're not allowed to book it, but if you talk to her, she can make it happen.
Yeah, all right, so that's a good idea. I was also thinking of looking at Oyster, because they have expanded hours for their community room. So I was looking at either or. I'm
Okay.
not married to either one.
Yeah, that would be a good venue. I mean, have you found that they're easy to book? Because, you know, in the past, DCPS can be a little bureaucratic.
So Oyster is easy to book when you go through OANC.
Okay.
But I do think it's something that if everybody thinks it's a good idea, we could definitely have somebody come. I will say oddly, my biggest question is why she's restricting the tenant's opportunity to purchase. Because that seems like very straightforward, and I don't think there's room for abuse there, but I don't know, maybe she knows more than I do, but I feel like TOPA was a groundbreaking thing that DC
Yeah.
did.
Probably she's hearing from investor owners.
Probably. I will say when my last building went to be sold, they obviously have to give the tenants the opportunity to purchase first. And I was living in a studio at the time, and had I not been living in a studio, I would have been so annoyed that we didn't have the opportunity to purchase because they've been
Purchase,
valuing my
it's a right of first offer, and then I believe a right of, you know,
First refusal.
refusal after
Yeah.
the deal's done.
So they had us set up a board and everything, and the board ended up refusing to purchase, but I was so pissed. If I had a one bedroom, I think they were valuing one bedrooms in that building at like $200,000 was like market value at the time. I was like, oh, well, you would have been
Yeah.
made in the shade.
Yep.
But all right, I will reach out to Kendall on that, and then Rick, I will talk to you about either the library or Oyster, and
Okay.
reaching out to Kent to having him come and set up the hybrid meeting kit.
Sure. No, that would be fine to try the kit. I could tell you that in terms of the ANC meeting, they're also looking at maybe a lighter footprint than the kit, you know, and at least trying it at first with laptops, excuse me, in the room.
Bless you.
Pardon me. So people can participate. I mean, the kit is great, but you know,
Yeah, they're also looking at a new kit that apparently it does not require a pickup truck to move.
yeah.
By the way, when I say that, I don't mean that facetiously. The current hybrid
Oh,
meeting
it's quite
requires a pickup truck,
you know. So
which I don't have a car.
right, and so again, if we can't get the kit, we can just
Wait,
try
wait,
other solution.
is the ANC going to purchase a hybrid meeting kit?
No, so
Not the OANC has 8. One
Ah.
is in each ward,
Got it.
Ours is currently at the Chevy Chase library. But if we wanted to use it, somebody from the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions comes and moves it to the Cleveland Park Library and sets it up, but it does require a pickup truck.
Yeah,
Got
and the
How
other
much do these
thing-
things cost?
A lot.
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth, the other thing, and the sort of group that's looking at a hybrid meeting in June has met only once or so, but in looking at whether there could be a lighter though imperfect solution initially without resort to dragging a kid across, because again, what many of us would like to see is more hybrid meetings. So, schlepping an involved kid is kind of a disincentive to that. It might be initially, at least for the ANC meeting, all the commissioners have their laptops, which is what, most of us are using now. So in that sense, the commissioner online experience isn't a lot different. And of course, then, with people in the room, the challenge will be, how do you mic the room in such a way that participants online, can both be heard by, but also hear those in the room. And, one lighter approach would be to have, basically a couple of 1 or 2 audience laptops where people just come up and speak into the laptop on a podium so they can be heard,
Right.
by the commission. It's not perfect, but it's a lighter hybrid solution that could be tried. So maybe it'll be the kid or maybe it'll be that, but whatever it is, I'd like to
Experimenting
be
with this.
versatile enough
Great
so
to
we
actually
can
have
do
more
more of them.
in-person things.
Huh?
To Courtney's point about community, it would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
I will say, OANC is looking at purchasing more flexible hybrid meeting kits.
I'm also going to the 3A meeting this coming week to see how they're doing it.
3A is interesting, I've heard mixed reviews on
In
that.
that ballroom or whatever.
Yeah, they meet.
We've
in-
tried, the
in
CPCA
ballroom.
has tried to hold meetings there and they charge us like $1,000, so we can't do.
Yeah, well, they probably do a special deal to the ANC, but for there. But anyway, I mean, they meet in person, but it's also online, and so I'm gonna do an experiment where I'll go over and be in person and probably get, Marianne, my spouse, to listen in online and just sort of compare how the experiences are, because that's
What
might
is
be
it?
a
I mean,
lesson for
the
3C.
old head of WIS was a little bit amenable to this, and I don't think that WIS is pretty
Can't
self-contained. And
meet
we
at
don't.
WIS, that's the problem.
We what?
It has to be like a public, like a
Right.
DC owned or operated facility.
It does, like, even if WIS was willing to donate the space, you can't do that.
I think WIS would also have to make the stipulation that they're okay with anybody and anybody coming into the room.
And then WIS is also in the middle of a major construction project right now, so
Yeah, that garage is.
But that's why I was thinking, well, I mean, if not for now, for later, because it,
right. I mean,
Because
the
we looked at
library.
the Omni at one point
Mhm.
and they were unwilling to make the commitment of letting anybody join. Like if, obviously I
Right.
think like if there was a reason to not have somebody in the room, like they were not
Right.
willing to make that commitment, which is why we weren't able to use it.
I mean, look, well, the library has some constraints, but subject to finding a room, we'll work with that. For years, the ANC met up at the second district when the ANC was in a
right.
configuration, and even though that wasn't maybe geographically centered, it seemed to work okay. I mean, I think, once we start moving forward with a hybrid, it can move around a bit. I mean, Oyster would be a great alternative,
Yeah.
It's such a nice walk for me.
Yeah.
Forgive me, but
Yeah.
Well, I
I
mean,
need to go.
again, by moving it around, it makes it more convenient, at least, for
Right.
some people
Yeah.
some of the time. So
I say good night, but
Yeah.
thank you all for,
Yes.
yeah,
I would say, a very productive, friendly, happy community building week.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I
Okay. Well,
appreciate
thanks,
all of
everybody.
you.
Thank
I
you.
do too.
I'll
Okay.
look back with some emails, but thank you all.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't mean to, well, thank you. And good
It's
night.
good. I think we're good. Great meeting as usual.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye.